part of the problem is the sheer volume of it. Organizations have, in the billions, petabytes, effectively of data that's sitting around. A lot of it, I will say, in breaches, and when companies come to us, sometimes they weren't even aware that they had data sitting in some of these places until the breach occurred, and they looked at where that attacker actually went within their kind of bubble, and they'll find that, oh, we have data over here that hasn't been touched in 10 years, but it turns out it's full of, social security numbers and customers' names and all these things, or log files that didn't have retention policies that get picked up. So not knowing where it is, or even if you knew you had data sources, once you kind of get from your IT and your security groups, this is where the attacker went, or these were the places they could have, gotten to. You're trying to then immediately figure out, well, was that high value or low value content that attacker had access to? Because the next thing you're trying to get to is you want to be compliant with your notifications on the breaches. And those generally include some instruction around the type of data that was breached or leaked. And so you're trying to get to that answer, very quickly. But yeah, having it sprawled across SaaS systems and file shares and, just the mass volume of it, which is why if you can just reduce the volume and have a policy where you start deleting and have a disposition, you're going to reduce the cost and the total time that's spent on forensics and those initial pieces.
Is that the worst case horror story scenario there, that you suddenly realize you've got, social security numbers from people 30 years ago, then you don't even know if they're alive anymore? I mean, how much worse does it get?
That's pretty much it, is when you discover that you actually were holding on to all of this risk within the company that, wasn't on a risk register. It was basically a very large liability where, some of the breach attacks, it may have been closed in minutes, right? The actual cost of the breach itself and the ability for the organization to kind of quickly close it may have been minute. But as soon as there's an access to that data volume, you're 10xing the potential cost and risk that's there. The liability is massively increased.
I mean, if someone's watching this now at a company, is there anything they could do in the next 3 months to reduce this issue and the severity of it for them? Is there a first step other than calling you, of course?
Yeah. The first immediate thing is deleting data, right? Even if you didn't have systems, it's the only, deletion's the only control that permanently reduces breach severity. It's the most important thing. I mean, a lot of the data governance policies and tools and systems and things that you put in place, the end result is reducing the amount of data volume that you have out there within all of those different systems. Even if you still have to have all of those different business systems, just getting the data out. So if you had to start somewhere and you only have 90 days, you'd be trying to identify, what's the 20% of those locations that have the most sensitive data in them, and starting there. So if you may have a sense of which of your business applications within your ecosystem are the ones that are more likely to have names and addresses and social security numbers. So start there, and then actually have some meaningful deletion that occurs. Make some quick decisions. The document hasn't been touched or updated in 10 years. Does it really have any business value? Most regulatory requirements on keeping data, have expired by that amount of time, and actually do a meaningful deletion. That's where it starts. Look for stuff that you can get rid of.